3-7 never looked so good. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's at least our aim and our goal and mission every day. We got Ty Hudson on the line from Pig Trail Network to talk up Arkansas football. Ty, how you doing today?
Hey, how's it going, Mark? Thanks for bringing me on, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was great to track you down. You do some excellent work. I've watched it. I've seen it, I should say. Read it, and wanted to get you on here to break down Arkansas football. Despite the issues under Chad Morrison losing, 20 consecutive games in the SEC, I am amazed at the interest in this football team, even when they were down. I post a video on Arkansas football. People are watching it, even when they've lost a zillion games in a row. and when I led off this video by saying 3-7, this didn't feel like a 3-7 football team. Of course, there was the debacle at Auburn where the refs screwed it up. It was fun for a guy who has no vested interest in Arkansas football, but knows back from the Southwest Conference days leading into the SEC when Arkansas football was proud and certainly was a national power just 10 years ago. Under Bobby Petrino, and played some good football where Brett Bielema, it appeared as though he was going to bring it back at one point. He had it on a roll before things went south his last year and a half. I like to see Arkansas football competitive, and it was a fun team to watch.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was who it was. It was another content creator who had stated, maybe it was RJ Young or someone, but they had said that SEC football is more entertaining and better to watch when Arkansas is actually good. And since joining the SEC in 92, it's been a roller coaster ride, as most SEC fans are aware of. And SEC fans are all diehard. They do, even though they hate each other, they all keep up with each other pretty hardcore. And even the most diehard LSU Tiger fan will tell you that, SEC football does seem to be better when the Razorbacks are better. Obviously, it's great to have teams like Alabama. Of course, you had LSU last year win the title. Florida and A&M were both threatening this year. But I guess I am biased, but I do agree. I think the SEC is more entertaining when you've got someone like who's kind of an oddball school in the SEC when you think about it, especially geography-wise, Not that was any different in the Southwest Conference, being the only team not in the state of Texas. But, it's hopefully Sam Pittman gets us back on track, and it certainly looks like that could be the case.
Yeah, and I think people would be surprised if they look down through SEC history since the Hogs joined in 1992 that they've made 3 conference championship game appearances. I know that 1998 team, so I was down there covering the SEC, on the sidelines in the press box. I still cover the SEC, but from afar now. But for about 7 years at that point, when Houston Nutt, Danny Ford transitioning into Houston Nutt, how good Arkansas football was there for a few years under Houston Nutt. And then again, I reference the Petrino years. 2 back-to-back top 10 finishes, major bowl game appearances there. And it looked like Bielema was going to do something there for a few years. He'd lifted them from about a 3-win, and they went on that nice run, and they were improving by a game each year. I think they got to 8-5. And then what do you think happened there with Bielema?
Well, there's so many stories about this guy. I on paper, the hire was phenomenal. I mean, look at what he did at Wisconsin, right? With the Rose Bowls and everything and being competitive. And when you look at their recruiting rankings, they're not exactly blowing up the rankings. They're not blowing up on rivals and back when Scout was a thing and 247 and ESPN recruiting. And yet they're competitive every year. And so that in doing it with that, combined with what he achieved at Wisconsin, combined with the fact that Arkansas is, like I said, kind of an oddball school anyways, it was a great hire on paper. But I really don't know what happened there towards the end. A lot of people point to maybe the Sam Pittman departure, which we know he left to go to Georgia and be the offensive line coach there, that all of a sudden recruiting just kind of tanked. It seemed like, in my opinion, when you look at recruiting, I kind of thought it just felt like, okay, they're not as serious with trying to answer the needs trying to problem solve and doing that with recruiting those last couple of years, and it put Arkansas in a really tough jam. In fact, when Chad Morris was hired, the belief was, oh, well, now we're going to get to go back into Texas because Brett Bielema was a train wreck in the state of Texas, after some of the comments that he had made down there about needing a fullback and making some kind of sly comments towards the state. So, and Chad did do well, right? Chad turns it around, and all of a sudden you go 2-10, and somehow you have a unanimous top 25 recruiting class. Brett Bielema never really, I don't know. I feel like, to me, it was a recruiting problem, and a lot of other fans will tell you he just kind of gave up. And I have a hard time believing that, because he's, you're a coach at a major Power 5, in a big conference at a big school, and just to give up. I don't know what happened. I think it was more about just, I don't know. I think he burned his bridges in Texas, which is a pipeline for the University of Arkansas. And I think a lot of it went downhill since then.
And Ty, it's fascinating to me how a couple games can turn. Maybe this wasn't the core or root of the problem, but it was the surface evidence or results that he was having his best season. Then they go to Missouri and they blow a big lead. It looks like they're going to win their final game of the season, finish like 9-3. I think they were like 8-3. They lose to Missouri. They blow like a 17-point lead. Then they go to the Belk Bowl. They play Virginia Tech. They get a 24-0. They blow 2 games at the end of the season that they had huge leads in. And suddenly what could have been a really strong season turned into like this 7-6 kind of season. Then the next season just, they had been building every year to that point, and those 2 games just seemed to derail them.
It's like you said, it's amazing what just 2 games can do. Yeah, you don't play 16 games like you do in the NFL, right? And you've got a playoff, and you have kind of like this thing you could do at the end of the year in the NFL where you could make up for some things that went wrong. But in college football, especially at the end of the year, like you said, you blow this lead against Mizzou, and now Mizzou has this 5-game win streak against Arkansas that's just mind-blowing. But you go back to that game, and the second half you blow it. And then, like you said, the Belk Bowl, you blow another big lead. And that fans were already kind of upset about how that year had gone. And then the next season, now his seat is just – it's warm. It was hotter than we realized. And then, of course, they fire him. And it's just not ever really been it's just not been the best years for Arkansas football since the firing of Brett Bielema. And again, I was for it. I was on my channel on the pig trail saying, look, something's got to change. They need to walk away from Brett. This looks like a dumpster fire. And then they make an even worse hire. And of course, I think that had more to do with what was going on with the athletic director hire. Hunter Yurchek did not hire Chad Morris. It was actually Cromer's Peoples. I can't ever pronounce her name right. She was the interim AD, and I think her and the board kind of were in on that, and it was just turned out not to. By the way, Clint Sterner, former Arkansas quarterback, you mentioned that 98 season. Of course, he was the quarterback then, was really behind the hire and was really pushing it. I always wondered, did he have some form of influence on the hiring of Chad Morris? Surely he did. But yeah, it's amazing what 2 games can do. And those 2 games are the reason why I think we're in the situation that we're in now. Well, not just those 2 games, but kind of how that year set up, and then following that year up with another just horrific underachievement for the Razorbacks.
Ty, this is not the reason why I had you on today. I am just a sucker for this kind of narrative, program changing events, history, that sort of thing. So once I went down that path, my apologies.
No, you're fine. I love it.
Got Ty Hudson on the line, Pig Trail Network, to talk. Okay, Arkansas personnel. And this is a crazy year across college football. Of course, with the pandemic 2020, but it's spilling into the offseason now with this transfer portal. There's always the NFL draft issue for teams, and there's always obviously recruiting. So let's start with the NFL draft. Probably not hitting this team and this program as hard this year as it is most teams of this stature, but run us down in regards to who may be leaving, going, who's decided to come back. Give us kind of the narrative there.
The good news for Arkansas, like you said, they weren't really impacted. I mean, Rakeem Boyd, who a lot of people in your audience probably remember, Last Chance U, he was kind of a star that year. what was that, season 3 with Coach Brown, and and Rakeem was I remember at the end of that season he was really worried about making the right or wrong decision. I think looking back he made the right decision. It just didn't end up the way he wanted. But Rakeem Boyd, who opted out with 1 game to go, and he's going to the NFL, and then Jonathan Marshall, defensive tackle, who's really the only guy up front on the defensive line for Arkansas that really had any push, that had any kind of impact whatsoever. I mean, they were horrible at getting to the quarterback, or as far as getting sacks. They could pressure a guy, but they couldn't sack a guy, and that was ultimately an issue for Arkansas this year. But Jonathan Marshall was really the only bright spot on the defensive line. Grant Morgan, who's a finalist for the Burlsworth Award, one of the best walk-ons in the country. He's going to go down as one of the greatest walk-ons behind, obviously, Braden Burlsworth, who's a former Razorback himself, who the trophy's named after. So Grant Morgan is going to come back for the Hogs. That is a huge, big time. I mean, you're talking about an all-conference, all-American linebacker coming back. People were concerned about that. I was concerned about Monteric Brown because Arkansas had some issues at the cornerback spot this year, where you had, once again, another walk-on, only he was a freshman at the other corner spot. But Monteric, it was kind of low-key, but he said he was going to come back. And, I mean, they had a few guys, Shamar Nash. We talked about him a little bit before we went live. Big-time 4-star receiver out of IMG. He's going to transfer to Memphis. Shibwez Nwana, who was a pretty highly regarded JUCO, who's going to transfer. But yeah, they're as close to being unscathed as you can be. There's a lot of upside going into the offseason, and fortunately, not a whole lot of so far. I know we got a little ways to go. We still got the final signing period in February, but so far they look to be in pretty good shape.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day. We got the best bloggers, broadcasters, writers in the industry showing up here multiple times per day. We got Ty Hudson on the line for our first time here, and I can tell that I'm probably going to be tracking you down again. Ty, good stuff coming from Ty. You can catch him on Pig Trail Network. So the transfer portal, I see a list of names. I've gone from team to team to team. There's typically about 8 to 12 guys per team. I don't think Arkansas has been hit too hard. Anything of note, whether they be departures or arrivals?
Well, right now, I don't know. The biggest question has been the quarterback situation at Arkansas. Now that Felipe Franks, he's officially declared he's going to play in the Reese's Senior Bowl, assuming it even happens. But he's declared he's not going to come back to finish out his next senior season. So the question is, what's going on at quarterback, and are they going to reach out in the transfer portal and maybe look for someone? There's already been some names out there, and I don't think they will. I'm not even so sure that they should. KJ Jefferson, who's the 6'3", 235, 240-pound dual threat quarterback, played against Mizzou, and I don't have his stats up in front of me right now, but was really impressive. I think he gave Hog fans a lot of hope, and I think he did the same thing with the coaching staff. So I feel pretty confident that they're going to stay away from the quarterback position. You never know. I mean, if there's someone out there who's big enough, who could run the Kendall Briles offense the way that they want to run it, and is a true dual threat and doesn't have the injury list, and is someone who you can count on to maybe come in and push for some playing time. I don't know that happens. I really feel pretty confident at the quarterback position. We'll see what they do. They just landed a big time former Arkansas commit in Tykees Crawford out of Charlotte, and he committed to Arkansas last year. Then I can't remember his issues, but he had some I think it was grades if I remember right. And he played a year there. Then he released his projections as far as where he wanted to go, and I think it was Arkansas, Florida State. Again, this kid was already committed to Arkansas, and I believe Sam Pittman had recruited him when he was at Georgia. So maybe someone will have to fact check me on that. But anyways, he committed again with Arkansas. I believe he's going to be here for the spring, so he'll be he'll be able to take part in that again, assuming we have a spring camp. But other than that, I don't know that there's anyone. But you know how this transfer portal works. Anybody can pop up at any time, and things could change at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, I guess on one hand, you would figure that a program developing like Arkansas would be all over the transfer portal, but at the same time, with few departures and such a young team, I think that's obviously the way to go in terms of traditional recruiting. It should be a way to build a team. It should be a complementary piece here or there. I don't think it's the way to go and to try to build a program. And as you mentioned, KJ Jefferson, 41 attempts for the season, 18 of 33 in that Missouri game, 274 yards, 3 TDs, no picks. So a nice outing against the Tigers. Got Ty Hudson on the line from Pig Trail Network here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. If you enjoy the conversation, we would ask that you smash the like button, you subscribe, you hit the bell for the notifications, you know when we go live, which is multiple times per day. Got Ty Hudson on the line talking Arkansas football. And you know what they say about the offseason is that sometimes the best acquisitions are just keeping the guys that you have. And you can include that for the coaching staff as well. And it appears as though, despite the defensive issues, everybody knew that Arkansas might have had the worst and least experienced defensive personnel going into 2020. So for Barry Odom to pull off what he did in regards to keeping it together, the unit forced a lot of turnovers, especially early in the season. It seemed as though this is a definite plus for Arkansas football.
Yeah, outside of Justin Stepp, who is going to go to South Carolina, take the same position for a little bit more money. I think he was making $400 here. He's going to end up making about $460 at South Carolina. Wanted to go home, it sounds like, and it's a, you know, in my opinion, that was a pretty big blow. Justin Stepp is a guy who walked into Texas and walked out with big time talent, and of course was a big part of Treylon Burks' recruitment, big time 4-star player out of Warren, Arkansas, and who was awesome this year and really blew up. And the development of wide receivers was great too. When Burks goes down with an injury, you had guys like Devion Warren and Mike Wood step up big time. Or you know, when you have guys like, well, I mentioned Shamar Nash, who entered the transfer portal. They had Trey Knox, who was this big time 4-star out of Tennessee, who really took a step back this year. And I don't know if that's because of offense or what, but again, it seemed like Stepp did his work here, and he said, okay, well, you know, if we're having these issues with Knox, then these other guys are going to step up for you. And that's exactly what they did. So Stepp's departure to me is a blow to some degree, you know, as far as recruiting and development on the field. But other than that, they're keeping everybody. I'm a big fan of Ryan Rhodes, the linebacker coach, what he did with Bumper Pool. And I mentioned Grant Morgan and kind of, you know, keeping those guys fresh. And you saw it this year. These two were so pivotal. When the defensive line wasn't able to make stops up front of the line of scrimmage, the linebackers were stepping up and blowing up gaps. Like it was for a while there, especially before injuries kicked in, the linebackers were just incredible. They were, you know, the open field tackling was just, we hadn't seen that in a little while. And that's even with guys like Scooter Harrison, Dre Greenlaw, who's playing for the 49ers in the NFL. Like we hadn't really seen it. Even then we still had questions. And this year, you know, the first 5-6 games, I thought the linebackers were on another level. We just haven't seen that here in a while. But the staff, young, some of them, you know, a little bit, you kind of wonder about the experience a little bit, but overall, I hope they're able, you know, moving forward from here until obviously you get into spring when these teams are now safe at that point for the most part, as far as losing anybody. Hopefully they keep everybody intact. And I think that's going to be the case. Kendall Briles, we know, offensive coordinator at Arkansas, is going to make some short list. Wouldn't surprise me at all between now and whatever. So like I said, spring maybe, that someone else is interested in him. But I feel pretty confident they keep these guys.
Talking up Arkansas football with Ty Hudson from Pig Trail Network. You got to join him right there. I'll get the banner up there and check out his work and the rest of the staff there at Pig Trail Network. It's an 8th rated class in the SEC, number 21 in the nation. That's life in the SEC. Of course, you get buried even though you're in the top 20 virtually there. 22 commits coming in during that early signing period. Do we expect a whole lot more activity headed toward that first Wednesday in February?
Well, they have room. I think it's 2 more spots. I could be wrong on that. This number has changed. It seems like at least once or twice since the early signing period. But I think it's at least 2 or 3 spots. The rumor is, and Sam Pittman kind of addressed this a while back, that they definitely still want offensive linemen, and they're still interested in grabbing some guys on the defensive line. And of course, my biggest concern is, and I talked about linebackers a second ago, it is linebackers. Coach Rhodes doesn't have a lot to work with behind Grant Morgan and Bumper Pool. There's so many question marks behind these guys, and I use a term quite a bit called, a quality depth. And I don't know they have a lot there, and I hope that that's somewhere they key in on with these last couple of spots. However many spots they have left, hopefully that's what they key in on. But, yeah, I mean, this was a good class. I think there's going to be a couple of guys that could contribute early. But, as far as those last few spots, we'll have to wait and see. I do think they will fill them. I know Crawford took one of those, the tackle out of the offensive tackle out of Charlotte that I mentioned a second ago. He will fill one of those spots, and so that should leave them with, like I said, 2 or 3 spots left. And it wouldn't shock me if Sam Pittman being an offensive line guy, he just fills them all up with offensive linemen, and I would be okay with that. I really would. There's nothing wrong with having a lot of depth on the line of scrimmage.
15 early enrollees, so those guys are going to be hitting campus real soon. You mentioned a lot of guys that will need to step up. And those are guys that are going to have the jump, of course, in regards to getting acclimated to the system and getting on campus, getting stronger and faster and all those things. Are there any particular guys that jump out to you that you really like, that just anyone in particular, even if they're not the high-end guys, that based on the scouting reports and what you've seen on tape that you like?
Someone that stands out, and he is highly rated, but even if he wasn't, his film and everyone that I've talked to in Arkansas media who cover recruiting are pretty blown away by this kid out of Union, out of Tulsa, and AJ Green. He's the national, according to 247, he's a top 200 player in the country.
It's a good name.
What's that?
It's a good name.
Right? AJ Green?
In the past, yeah.
Got NFL written all over it, right? I'm big on this kid. This guy's film is incredible. He hits the outside edge. I mean, I don't know what his official 40 is, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him drop like a mid-4.3 40. He's fast, excellent burst, pretty good vision, good balance. Tucks the ball well. He adjusts the ball to whatever side of the line or whatever side of the out of bounds is. If he's going towards the right hash mark, he tucks that ball in tight, going right. But he's so fast once he hits the outside edge. I'm really excited about him. There's been some comparisons to another former Tulsa native who played at Arkansas, and Felix Jones. It could be AJ Green, could be that caliber. Really excited about him. Megatron Jackson, 6'3", 190-pound wide receiver that Texas, just like they went after Barry Odom, they went after this kid there towards the end, gave him a virtual tour of their facilities, came on real strong there towards the end. But inevitably, and you talk about Coach Stepp earlier, I mentioned him. This was a guy that came here because of Coach Stepp, and I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he likes Sam Pittman. I think the Hogs are doing okay, and I don't think he's going to transfer or anything like that. But Katron Jackson was a big-time get. Rocket Sanders or Raheem Sanders, who's going to be an athlete. But I think they're going to use him as kind of like a Swiss Army knife wide receiver, running back combo. And another guy, and by the way, A.J. Green will be a running back. I know he's listed as an athlete. Another guy, too, that committed kind of late, and they actually have him listed as an offensive tackle, but I'm 99% sure he's going to play defensive tackle. Is this kid out of Tri-Cities High in Atlanta, Georgia, Cameron Ball, 6'5", 300 pounds. There's a video of him. I think he recovers a fumble, and I swear he's running down the sidelines. It looks like the kid drops like a 4.5, 4.4 40. He looks like a running back. It's incredible. He's so athletic, fast. I don't know so much about his technique. I haven't seen a lot on just his technique. Playing the inside with that frame, 6'5", 300 pounds, he could probably even add on a little bit of weight if they want to continue with this 3 front. He could probably add 25, 30 pounds, play nose tackle, line up across the center. Really excited about him. His athleticism for that size is really incredible. You've got Jalen Williams as JUCO defensive tackle, 6'3", 210. He's also pretty quick, pretty athletic. I like this. I think that this is a class, this 21 class. There's a lot of hidden gems. You could argue, okay, you're still bottom of the SEC. Well, that's Arkansas's been that way for a while now. They used to be kind of in the middle there towards like 6th, 7th in recruiting. Now they're just getting comfortable like 8th and 10th in recruiting, sometimes worse. But this is a top-heavy class. Right now, it's a top 25 class. We'll see if it remains that way after the final signing period. But yeah, there's several guys that you just go down this list. I think they've got some guys that were either overlooked or just for whatever reason they just weren't given the extra star power. Another guy, one last guy, Aaron Outley out of Parkview, who was injured right I think halfway through the season down in Little Rock. But he's a 6'4", 250-pound tight end. Reminds me a little bit of a slightly taller DJ Williams, another former Little Rock kid that played at Arkansas under Bobby Petrino and who was excellent under Bobby Petrino, had a brief shot in the NFL. Aaron Outley reminds me a little bit of him. Not the 6'6", 6'7", 270, 265 tight end that some of these teams play. He's not a monster tight end, but he's 6'4", 250 roughly. Pretty athletic, moves pretty quick, pretty solid blocker, and is someone with a really large catch radius, dangerous even after he catches the ball. So, yeah, again, I'm pretty impressed with this class. And I think even if it doesn't stay in the top 25, which I know Hog fans, we love that. Oh, top 25. Again, here we go. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year after the final signing period, but regardless, top to bottom, there's some pretty good answers here. Now, I will say on the defensive side, on the Hog Talk podcast, which I'm also the host on the Friday show, co-creator of that, I had said, and some people kind of called me out on it, wasn't super impressed with the defensive side outside of like Cameron Ball, who I mentioned. Probably give their defensive grading in this one like a D-. Wasn't too impressed with the defensive recruiting, but the skill position, the Terry Wells, a 3-star offensive tackle, I think was underrated. Offensively, this was a really, really solid recruiting class.
So more high-scoring games could be in the Hogs' future. There you go.
Yeah.
And back to AJ Green, second rated according to 247 Sports in Oklahoma, number 4 athlete. Ty tells us he's going to be a running back, and number 111 nationally, regardless of position. That's pretty rarefied air. Ty Hudson joining us from Pig Trail Network. Ty, this is the first time on our channel. We hope you can make it back. It was really good stuff talking Arkansas football with you.
Absolutely, man. It was an honor and a pleasure. I was really stoked when you reached out. This was awesome.